In the far reaches of the galaxy, beyond the known trade routes and secure systems, there lay a quiet zone of stars called Neutral Zone Theta. It was a place of political balance, fragile agreements, and old tensions buried under decades of uneasy peace. But now, something had disturbed that peace. Reports had started pouring in, ships vanishing without a trace, border outposts going silent, and mysterious signals pulsing through the dark. The Tlareth hegemony, a powerful alliance of alien species, called for an emergency summit. Feared a growing threat, something unknown, something that moved in shadows beyond their reach. Delegates and war fleets from the major galactic powers arrived one by one, their ships drifting like ancient gods above a dormant wormhole that had long been used as a neutral meeting point. Each vessel was a marvel of its own kind. Shimmering cruisers made of living crystal, heavy destroyers shaped like floating towers, and silent drones that scanned every corner of the void. The air was full of confidence. These were species who had ruled the stars for centuries, who had shaped the laws of the galaxy and believed there was no power left that could shake them. Their ambassadors, cloaked in pride and ceremony, spoke of strength, order, and swift punishment for whoever dared to challenge their borders. Then the wormhole began to shift. At first, it was just a flicker barely noticed. Then it flared open. With a deep, unnatural pulse that echoed even across silent space, from within a single ship emerged. It did not shimmer. It did not hum with the strange lights of other civilizations. It was black deep, hollow black, like a shadow pulled from the darkest corner of space. Its design was sharp, geometric, and unreadable. No species present had seen anything like it. There were no markings, no signals, no friendly greeting, codes. The ship moved slowly, directly, and without a single word. It made no aggressive moves, but there was something about its presence that pulled attention like gravity. The Clary ambassador, whose people were known for arrogance and quick judgments, laughed at the sight of the vessel. Primitive. It's probably automated, he muttered, shaking his scaled head. His aides nodded, already preparing scan protocols. Dozens of sensor beams were fired at the unknown ship, some scanning for heat, others for language codes, energy signatures, or life forms. The results came back. Strange, some readings showed nothing at all. Others returned distorted echoes, as if the ship wasn't entirely in their space. The science teams whispered among themselves, confused. One thing was certain, it didn't match anything in the thousands of known ship classifications. Still, the aliens felt little fear. They were the rulers of this region, whoever this was, pirates, rebels, some forgotten minor race they would be brought to heel. Some fleets powered their weapons just in case. Others dismissed it as a stunt. But there was one group that didn't speak, didn't analyze, and didn't mock. The Jill, an old species whose records went further back than most, watched the ship in silence. Their skin, pale and lined with glowing veins, grew cold. Their high elder leaned forward, eyes narrowing. His voice was barely a whisper, meant only for his own kind. "This is not a stranger," he said. "This is a memory." The Jill remembered stories half lost, half feared of a world that had once burned brighter than any. World called Earth. A people who had risen quickly, burned fiercely, and then vanished before the others could understand them. Most believed the humans had died out after the fall of Sol. Their systems had gone dark. No ships seen, no colonies left. The galaxy had moved on. But now, something had returned. And the Jill knew that the silence of humans was never a good sign. As the alien fleets waited, the black ship drifted closer to the summit formation. Some vessels adjusted their positions, preparing for confrontation. Communications officers sent hails, warnings, demands. There was no reply. The ship just floated forward at a steady pace, surface absorbing light rather than reflecting it, as if even the stars were unsure how to touch it. Despite its silence, it seemed to see everything, every formation, every weapon lock. Every ship's position, like it was reading the battlefield before it was even drawn. Some younger officers grew nervous. Captains barked orders to stay calm, but something felt wrong. There was no tension in the black ship's movement, no hesitation, no curiosity. It wasn't lost, wasn't unsure. It was meant to be here. One cruiser, bold and brash, fired a low-power warning beam across the ship's path. Not a hit, just a message. Still, the black ship didn't react. No shields flared, no armor rippled. The beam passed through empty space, as if the ship wasn't entirely real. The Telerith commanders began to argue among themselves. Some demanded action, others called for patience. But above them all, the Jil Elder simply closed his eyes and repeated one word: Retribution. The ship that had emerged from the wormhole was not just any vessel, it was the TSS Retribution, a name whispered in old stories but thought lost to time. It was a Terran warship, one unlike any recorded by the alien fleets. Its design was unfamiliar, yet undeniably human in its stark, its angular lines and the faint blue and white emblem, barely visible on its hull banner that had been forgotten by most civilizations long ago. 4 centuries, humanity had disappeared. From known space? After the catastrophic event called the Fall of Sol, Earth and its colonies vanished from the star charts. Many had assumed the humans were extinct, victims of their own wars or some cosmic disaster. The mighty star systems they once controlled went dark, and their ships ceased to answer any calls. Over time, humans became little more than a legend, a ghost story told by older races to remind younger ones of an age when Earth had been a force to be reckoned with. Now, with the sudden appearance of the Retribution, that ghost had returned, stirring fear and curiosity across the galaxy. The alien fleets, still gathered near the wormhole, reacted quickly. Communications officers sent out warning messages, demanding the ship identify itself, explain its purpose, or leave immediately. Their messages were firm, growing steadily harsher as the ship remained silent and unmoving. Fighter squadrons launched from the surrounding cruisers, racing toward the black vessel with weapons armed and eyes on target. The tension in the void was thick. Decades of peace, fragile as it was, now seemed ready to shatter. But inside the Retribution, the atmosphere was calm, almost quiet, despite the warnings being sent into the void. On the bridge, Captain Marin Voss stood firm, her eyes scanning the vast darkness ahead. She was a veteran of the last Earth War before the Great Exodus, a time when humanity had fought desperately to survive before disappearing into the shadows of space. Her hands rested lightly on the console, her expression steady and resolute. Around her, the crew moved efficiently, each member trained to face the unknown without panic. Captain Voss knew the galaxy had forgotten Earth, but she also knew that forgetting did not mean safety. She gave a simple but powerful order: hold fire, let them judge us. It was a command of patience and strength, a warning against rash action that could ignite a conflict none were prepared to handle. As the alien fighters closed in, the Retribution did not raise shields, nor did it fire weapons. Instead, it continued its slow, deliberate approach, as if it were a test not of firepower but of will. On the bridge of the largest Telerith cruiser, the commanders debated their next move. Many demanded an immediate boarding operation, convinced that this silent, unmarked ship was a threat that must be neutralized before it could strike. Others, less certain, suggested more caution. But few listened to the ancient warnings sent secretly by the Jil. These elder beings, remembering the stories of old Earth, had sent private messages to their counterparts: do not provoke them. You do not know what you are dealing with. Their words were ignored or dismissed as superstition by those eager to demonstrate strength. The alien fleet's impatience grew. Fighters closed the gap, aiming to force the Retribution to reveal its intentions. The silent warship did not flinch. Inside, the crew remained watchful, sensors scanning every ship that approached, every weapon that hummed to life. The tension was a silent conversation, an unspoken challenge between the old legends of humanity and the established powers of the galaxy. It was clear that this was no simple return. The humans had not come back to beg for mercy or to plead for peace. It had come to be seen, to be understood on their own terms. As the fighters prepared to make their move, Captain Voss remained calm, knowing that one wrong step could ignite a war that would spread beyond neutral zone theta. The crew's training held them steady. And despite the pressure, no weapons were fired from the Retribution. Across the fleet, nervous whispers passed between ships. Some wondered if the humans had changed, if they had learned humility in their exile. Others feared that the silence was the calm before a storm. Meanwhile, the Jill continued their vigil, their pale eyes filled with concern. Their ancient knowledge told them that the Retribution was only the first step of a much larger return that would challenge the balance of power and force every species in the galaxy to reconsider their place in the stars. The alien summits, once confident and proud, now felt fragile and uncertain, waiting for a move that could either bring peace or unleash destruction. And through it all, the Retribution moved steadily onward, a silent reminder that humanity had not only survived, but had returned, ready to face the galaxy once more. As the tension in neutral zone theta reached its peak, a squadron of alien interceptors was ordered to engage the silent Terran Warship. These ships, sleek and deadly, moved with precision, their weapons systems locked onto the Retribution. Without hesitation, the lead fighter fired a concentrated energy beam aimed directly at the human vessel's hull. The beam struck with a flash, but instead of piercing or damaging the ship, it simply disappeared. The energy seemed to be swallowed, neither reflected back nor absorbed, as if the beam had passed through a ghost. The attackers were baffled. No ship in the galaxy could ignore a direct hit like that. They quickly regrouped and launched a second volley, more powerful and rapid. Then the first, hoping to overwhelm whatever defenses the Retribution held. This time, something changed. A subtle vibration began to ripple through the human vessel's hull, a deep, resonant hum that filled the space around it.
Ow.
The ship did not tremble from fear, but seemed to be waking from a long slumber. Beneath its dark angular plating, hidden weapon systems powered up. Ancient and powerful technologies, thought to be lost with humanity's disappearance. Singularity lances emerged, capable of bending space itself. Phase matter warheads activated. Weapons designed to disrupt matter on a quantum level. And tactical gravity shears charged silently, ready to rend anything caught in their path. The alien fleet watched in stunned silence as the Retribution readied its response. Then, without warning, it fired. A beam of compressed spacetime burst forth from the ship's forward array, stretching and twisting the fabric of reality itself. The nearest battleship, a massive vessel 10 times the size of the Retribution and bristling with weapons, was caught in the blast. The ship's hull was not merely destroyed, vanished, erased from existence as if it had never been there. Debris did not scatter. Nothing remained. The shockwave rolled outward, sending ripples through the alien formations. The fleet recoiled in disbelief and fear. This was no ancient relic drifting aimlessly through space. It was a weapon of terrifying power, wielded by a force that had returned from the depths of forgotten history. The silent, dark ship had spoken loudly. Humanity was back, and they were not to be underestimated. Across the fleet, commanders scrambled. To respond, weapons charging, shields raised, yet no one could deny the message delivered by that single devastating strike. It was a clear declaration, a warning to all who doubted or ignored the strength of the Terran people. The calm before the storm was over. The Retribution had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same again. As the echoes of the attack faded into the void, the alien leaders faced a grim reality. The age of underestimating humanity was finished. The stars had been shaken by a force thought lost, and now that force was ready to reclaim its place among the great powers. In the stillness that followed, a new chapter began, a chapter defined by tension, fear, and the undeniable presence of the Terran Warship, poised and prepared for whatever came next. In the stunned silence following the devastating attack, the alien coalition struggled to regain control and order. Their great fleets, once confident and proud, were now scattered and cautious. Their crews shaken by the sheer power unleashed by the Terran Warship. Communication channels buzzed wildly with frantic messages, calls for reinforcements, demands for explanations, and desperate attempts to understand what had just happened. The sudden destruction of the massive battleship had sent shockwaves, not only through the fleet, but also through the very core of the alien alliance. For hours, no reply came from the Retribution, and speculation ran wild. Was this the start of a full-scale war? Had the humans returned as enemies, bent on conquest and destruction? Then, just when tension reached a breaking point, a new signal. Cut through the chaos's secure, encrypted channel opened by the Terran vessel itself. The voice that came through was calm, authoritative, and filled with a quiet power. "This is Captain Marin Voss, of the Terran Stellar Union," she announced clearly, her tone firm but measured. "We claim no territory. We seek no war. But we do not forget. And we do not forgive." The message was brief but loaded with meaning. It was not a plea for peace, nor an offer of surrender. It was a statement of intent, and warning a reminder that while humanity had returned peacefully, they carried with them the memory of past wrongs and the strength to defend what they believed was rightfully theirs. The alien coalition, still recovering from the shock, scrambled to respond. Their leaders demanded answers, demanding to know why humanity had chosen this moment to reappear after centuries of silence, and where exactly they had been all this time. Among the many voices in the void, a few hidden figures, historians, and scholars from various species who had quietly preserved fragments of human history began piecing together long-forgotten truths. Their research revealed a story very different from what most had believed. Earth had never truly fallen. Instead, humanity had deliberately vanished from the visible galaxy, retreating underground and into hidden systems after uncovering a vast conspiracy among the dominant alien powers. This conspiracy had aimed to contain humanity, isolate them as a growing threat to galactic stability, and erase their influence. In response, humanity had spent centuries in silence, evolving in secret, adapting to new technologies, mastering forgotten sciences, and preparing patiently for the right time to return. The legends of the lost Earth were true, but incomplete. Humanity had not been destroyed. They had been waiting, growing stronger and wiser beneath the surface of known space. And now they had chosen to step forward once again, ready to reclaim their place among the stars. But they did not come as conquerors, seeking to impose their will by force. Instead, they sought recognition as equals, or perhaps even something more. Their message was clear: they would no longer be ignored, dismissed, or confined to the shadows. As the alien fleets absorbed this truth, uncertainty and fear mixed with a reluctant respect. Many questioned how to respond to this new power, whether with hostility, diplomacy, or caution. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting, and every species knew the coming days would test the fragile peace in ways they had never imagined. The Terran Warship, still silent but watchful, remained a symbol of humanity's return, a reminder that the past was not forgotten and that the future belonged to those ready to claim it. In that tense silence, the stars seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see what humanity's next move would be, how the galaxy would respond to the message carried by the Retribution's steady pulse across the void. In the aftermath of the Retribution's silent departure from Neutral Zone Theta, the alien coalition faced a difficult and urgent decision. Their leaders gathered in tense, urgent councils, voices raised in debate, echoing through command centers scattered across star systems. Some factions called for immediate retaliation, convinced that humanity's return was a threat that must be crushed before it grew too strong. They demanded fleets be mobilized, weapons be charged, and strikes be planned to remind the Terrans that the galaxy would not bow to a forgotten race. Others urged caution, pushing for diplomacy and communication, believing that war could be avoided if the Terrans were given a chance to explain themselves and find a place within the existing galactic order. Yet, despite these differing opinions, no one could deny one fundamental truth: the coalition had misjudged humanity. The legends and rumors of a lost Earth had blinded them to the reality. The humans had not only survived, but had returned with power and purpose far beyond what anyone had imagined. Before the factions could fully settle on a path, a new broadcast appeared on all frequencies clear, commanding transmission from the Terran Stellar Union's flagship, the Retribution. Captain Marinvoss's voice was calm but resolute as she spoke again, not with threats, but with revelation. This time, alongside her message, a holographic map unfolded in the void, showing dozens of blinking signals scattered across sectors the alien fleets had never charted. These were Terran outposts, hidden bases, and fleets quietly scattered throughout uncharted space, proof that the Retribution was not alone. It was only the first of many. "We are not alone," Captain Voss declared. "The Retribution is only the first. Terra has returned not to bow, not to beg, but to balance the stars." Her words hung in the cold silence of space, like a new law written in the void. The message was not one of conquest or submission, but of equality and inevitable change. The humans were here to restore balance, to claim their place among the great powers, not through domination, but through strength and determination. Without further warning, the Retribution activated its drives and vanished into a ripple of space-time, disappearing from sensor arrays and leaving behind only a fractured silence. This sudden jump left the coalition reeling, unsure whether to celebrate survival or prepare for conflict. But the message was clear: humanity did not seek permission, nor did it ask for acceptance. They had returned on their own terms, and the galaxy would have to adjust to a new equation, one where humanity was a key player reshaping the balance of power. The old alliances now felt fragile and uncertain, while new possibilities and dangers stretched across the stars. Every species watched closely, calculating their next moves, knowing that the Retribution's departure was not an end, but a beginning, a signal that the galaxy's future was being rewritten. The echoes of Captain Voss's words lingered, a challenge and a promise intertwined. The Terran Stellar Union was back, ready to engage not as a shadow of the past, but as a force demanding respect and recognition. And so, amid the shifting tides of fear and hope, the great game of the stars continued, forever changed by the return of humanity, whose silence had been their greatest weapon, and whose awakening was the galaxy's greatest reckoning.